morning. Thanks for taking the time to come to this session. I know the first session of any conference is always the hardest one, so thanks for taking the effort to come out this morning. I'd also like to thank the organizers of Web2day for inviting me to be here. I'm thrilled. I have to say that you probably hear this all the time, but you're a great-looking audience, and I'm kind of impressed at the moment because I come from a very small town in a forest in Canada on an island, and there's probably more people at this event than I would see in an entire year. So that's pretty exciting for me. I also have to be really honest because I'm a bit terrified to be here and to give this talk. My colleague Faiza, she was originally supposed to be here, but there was a huge storm that hit Texas. There was an issue with getting her passport on time because of the storm, so she asked me to step in. So I literally have had a few days to get here and to prepare this talk. So please forgive me if I'm looking at my notes way too often. So I just want to get started. It's hard for me to see you, but I would love that if you are a user of Trello and you know what Trello is, maybe just raise your hand so I get an idea. Great. So it's almost everybody in the audience. Great. Thank you. So while most of you are familiar with Trello, I'd like to give you a little bit of background. Trello started in January 2011 as a prototype to help solve high-level planning issues at Fog Creek Software. Joe Spolsky, the co-founder of Fog Creek, always had this issue after many years of managing, not knowing what people were working on. He would often have to go to people's offices and ask them, "What are you doing?" And often his response is, "Why are you working on that? How are we not collaborating more to know what each other are working on?" So a team formed to help try to find better ways to collaborate and to be aware of what everybody is working on. The idea is that it had to be simple. It had to be friction-free so that everybody would adopt it, but it also had to be a very powerful tool to collaborate. Development on Trello continued. It was betaed briefly, and during that same year, it was launched at a TechCrunch event called Disrupt in September. Since then, Trello is spun off into its own company. It received a Series A funding of 10 million. At the time, we had 5 million users, and today we have about 8 million users. We're projected to have 10 million users by the end of the summer, which we're very, very excited about. All different types of companies and individuals use Trello. This is something that we're really proud of. All different sizes, all different styles, and they use it in so many different unique ways. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Trello, which unfortunately there's not that many in the audience, Trello is a visual way to organize anything with anyone. It lets you see everything about your project in a single glance. It's outwardly simple, yet very powerful. And it sort of works like this. Each project is a board, which you see here. It's a list of lists. Each list contains cards. Cards can hold a wealth of information, like to-do dates, checklists, discussions. You can also add members to a board and then drag that member to a card if it requires their attention. Everything in Trello is very tactile. Users can drag things around, rearrange it in any format that they want, which means that Trello can be essentially used to plan anything. Family vacations, an upcoming semester at university, or even creating a healthy meal plan. To date, Trello's growth is primarily via word of mouth. People love to talk about what they love and why they love it. And that's because Trello delights them by being fun, flexible, and easy to use. Think about your favorite apps. Why did you choose to use those apps over all the other apps that you could have chosen? The common attribute of your favorite apps is not only do they look nice or work as advertised, they also strive to be simple, powerful, and so in tune with the user's needs that they become part of their daily life. They make effort to deliver a delightful experience. Delighting users is the core to the Trello experience. But how do we create that delight? I want to spend some time sort of talking about our vision and our process and how that fosters creating delight in our product. The one thing that we do is always stand by our vision. I'm sure that some of you who work on products or projects that are public-facing, you always get requests to do X or implement Y. Instead of answering every request at Trello, we try to understand the problem that the user is solving. This helps us to avoid bloating the software with things that might not be necessary to all users. This means that we don't crowdsource what we work on next, which can be frustrating to users. But it doesn't mean that we're not working on that feature. It often means that we haven't identified the core problem in order to give a solution that works with the Trello's vision. Our priority is shipping delightful, simple experiences that not only solve problems, but prepare us for the future. Having a clear product vision allows us to invest our time on discovering solutions to problems that are worth solving. An idea doesn't align with our product, we deem it on Trello-like, which is a phrase that we use among our team when we're working on new features or new ideas. There's just something about this that doesn't feel Trello-like. It's not part of our vision or what we want our users to experience. A common example of this is right now, it's not part of our vision to make a desktop application. Trello is primarily a web app with mobile applications that go with it. So we don't necessarily have any visions to be working on a desktop app right now, and that may frustrate users. But our focus is for the future, that we want to build an awesome web application. There's also the opposite. When we explore ideas, rather than trying to solve them from a perspective of how we would, we always ask ourselves, how would Trello, the product, solve this problem? This allows us to maintain an experience across all platforms. It gives us that perspective so that we're not necessarily doing things just for ourselves, we're doing things to better the product. If you're committing to working on one thing, something else has to be ignored to give your 100%. Multitasking is a nice thought, but in reality, it lowers the quality of work. This is especially true for product development. An example of this is we don't spend time making Trello work on legacy browsers or platforms. We could spend endless hours making sure that Trello works on all these old platforms on every device, maybe spend endless hours doing it, and maybe never finish it, only to find out that if we get close to finishing, our users have probably already upgraded. It's important to prioritize and design for the future by working on solutions that will be still relevant when you're finished. Sometimes problems can solve themselves in time. Aside from this philosophy of how we work, there's also a more tangible approach to keeping a consistent vision, creating design guidelines that foster continuity throughout all aspects of your product, your application, your marketing, your website, how you communicate to users. Our design guidelines are loose enough to allow flexibility for uncertain circumstances, but provide enough structure for the core essence of the brand to come through. It's important that guidelines be in accessible format so that everyone in the company can understand them and produce experiences that reflect the core vision. There should never be a moment when a user experiences something in your application or your product and finds an inconsistency that could ruin their expectations or their experience. The second major point that I sort of want to visit is dogfooding. Be a user of your own product. This is so important. At Trello, we dog food. So it means we use Trello to make Trello. We also use it for every other aspect of the company, onboarding new hires, planning company events, even keeping things like what's in the kitchen, what's the stock, do we need to order things? It all happens through Trello. Because we're heavy daily users, new ideas surface as personal frustrations that we want to solve. These frustrations, bugs, and ideas are all collected on a product planning board that we share with the entire team. From there, we begin discussions, and if a problem is big enough, meaty enough, we even start solutions or coming up with ideas at that point. Other times, some things don't necessarily align, or we're not sure what that idea means, so we sort of add it and we have a discussion and let it marinate. At any given time, we have internal alphas and betas that are full of new features and ideas at different stages of development. This allows us to validate ideas, experiment on ourselves, gather feedback. All of this is documented on the same product board that I was mentioning earlier. Sometimes these ideas, the betas, they get implemented into the product. Other times we just go, no, it's not ready. We shelf it, we let it marinate, and we revisit it again later. Initial ideas are often based on assumptions. Therefore, it's important to build flexible prototypes that allow you to evolve as the solution unfolds. When a solution has been dog-fed internally enough, we start releasing that feature to the public, to our users. But we do it in a way that is incremental. At first, we generally only release it to 1% of our users. So there's some people here today that have features that other of you don't. We do this so that we want to make sure that the feature follows the vision of Trello, but ultimately delights the user. And this gives us the ability to sample what users think of this specific feature that we're releasing. We listen closely for feedback on our support channels, social media, look at our analytics. And we do this process of iterating, releasing, listening, and repeating. We do this over and over, and we do it at different stages, 1%, 10% of our users, 50%, and we improve the feature until we feel that it satisfies our goals. At Trello, we collect a lot of data. We do quantitative research with one-on-one testing. We do qualitative event tracking via Google Analytics. And like I said earlier, we're actively engaged in social media and on our support channel. But how do we use this data? Sometimes with millions of users, the amount of information is overwhelming. How can we make sense or meaningful analysis from all this information? To overcome this, we look at the user metrics to tell us what users are doing, how they're going through a flow, where they're falling off, where they're taking a long time, and we combine that with in-depth one-on-one user testing. This combination allows us to make a picture of how Trello users work. The main thing that I want to stress about data is that people can be unpredictable, and data tends to be very rigid. There's a lot of discussion in the design world right now about data-driven design, and I just want to shift that a little bit, and I want to say that it's really important to remember to allow data to inform, not drive your design decision-making process. An example of this is when Trello first launched, it had a finite number of labels. And for years, users wanted to be able to add multiple custom labels to their cards. We wanted it. Everybody wanted it. But it was such a huge design and development challenge to be able to create something with such a minimal UI and also be able to account that every time a card moves from one board to another board, it completely changes context. It's an entire new environment where it has its own separate identities when it comes to labels. We didn't want to have such a confusion to our users to be thinking of this stuff. So it took us a long time to finally come up with a solution that's very simple for the user, solves a problem, and it's frictionless. So we're happy that this is finally out. So I've been talking a lot about vision, planning, process, but I want to move on to breaking things. Creating delight means that you have to break something. Do you notice when you have a good experience? Probably not. If things are behaving as you expect, you're probably not attuned to the details. It's not until something is broken that you become aware. While the phrase breaking a pattern can sound bad, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. How do we evolve? Or to be a little bit more philosophical, how do we advance as a society if we don't break patterns? To bring us back to reality, a good example is if a pattern is intentionally broken in order to solve a problem more efficiently than what you expect it to be. You shouldn't be afraid to take risk in order to improve the user experience. We spent a lot of time working on our Android application this past year, and it was a huge task. We really wanted to improve the user experience. Google released a new design language. We wanted to embrace it. And before we started, we used to navigate through the app with this ubiquitous hamburger icon. It made sense. Our desktop application, or our web application, used a similar navigation style. A lot of applications and websites are also using this hamburger menu. And it also meant that users are becoming to a familiar pattern, so it would be easier for them to understand our application. That's what we thought. For Trello, the hamburger menu basically opened a drawer that allowed users to navigate different boards, but also do some weird things like create a board in there, do some settings, and navigate to some other weird places within the application. And users could do this from basically any screen in our app. But just because the hamburger menu was being used widely, we weren't convinced that it was the best solution for us. At least the designers. A lot of the rest of the company were often hesitant about getting rid of the hamburger menu, but the designers fought for it. When we were iterating on our ideas, we experimented by removing the hamburger menu, the navigation drawer entirely, and made boards immediately visible as soon as the app was opened. It was a hard sell, one that we had to fight to because we were trying to break a pattern. But by breaking out of a familiar pattern of hiding behind the hamburger icon, we made Trello much easier to understand, especially to new users. That was a surprise to us. We made it obvious how our app works, just by doing that simple pattern break. We made better use of space, created a strong visual hierarchy that didn't exist when we were using a navigation drawer, and we also moved all the things that were in the navigation drawer, like creating boards, these weird actions that we were sort of just like hiding in there instead of dealing with them. We moved them out and we gave them purpose in the application. We converted adding the board to a floating action button, and all these things helped increase user engagement. Users were creating more boards. It was clear, and we were really excited about this. By breaking the pattern, we made Android much more efficient. and we delighted users. This is actually, oh, it's working, the video's playing. So on the left is the before with the navigation drawer, and then on the end is what we did after. Sometimes as designers, you really have to push forward, and there's times on the Trello team where we get feedback from the team, and it's sometimes disheartening. But I just want to say, keep pushing forward, because even if there's people on the team that are not convinced at first, showing them building a prototype, I think will ultimately change their hearts. And this is a good example. We had a developer who was a little hesitant about the Hamburger Menu, removing it, and then eventually he's just like, I've never thought that I'd miss it. Like, I don't even think about it. Also, Trello is not a pioneer when it comes to this. I just want to sort of say that it's important to know when to break patterns, depending on what caters to your company's vision and what's going to delight your user. Speaking of delight, which is the main topic of this panel, have you ever been delighted by an application that you use every day? Delight is an important part of the user experience. It not only makes people want to return and keep using your product, it shows that the makers of the product care enough to make considerations on the behalf of the user. Applications that delight us go beyond our expectations. They anticipate user needs, and they allow users to not only achieve something, but to do something meaningfully. For example, when a user copies a list of items from an email or a Word document or anywhere, and they paste that into a Trello card, we know that it's a list. So we anticipate the user's needs, and we give them a contextual UI, and we say, hey, you have a list here. Do you want to add that entire list to one card, or do you want each item to be a separate card? If they accept, all the cards are populated immediately. This is a simple interaction that could save users minutes. The first time that users experience this, a huge smile comes across their face. The first time I used this, I had a huge grin. It brings relief, it reduces stress, and that's delight. Anticipating user needs allows you to build contextual designs that show your users you care, especially when it comes to things that they might not have considered. It allows you to address pain points before they even happen. Your users will be delighted when you take the time to take a tedious task, something that was just an annoying fact of life, and make it easier to deal with. Another example of a quick interaction is when you add a card to a list, and then you just don't add it, and you move to another list, the card you're currently working on just follows you. Just makes it that simple. We're thinking about, you probably wanted it to be elsewhere, we're just going to move it there for you. Or sending emails to boards, which become cards. Super easy, or it could be anywhere. You just want to send a quick email to add something to a card. Or dragging, dropping URLs. Drag it, it becomes a meaningful item on a card back. You can even pull in some data. So if it's pulling from like GitHub or Killon, it shows you valuable information about that data URL. Simple, meaningful interactions communicate to our users that we understand their needs. We're striving to make their work just a little easier. At Trello, we put a lot of focus on function and usability, but we always look for opportunities to include whimsy. Elements that share a glimpse into our culture, that can bring a little bit of fun to user interactions and allow them to get to know us better. Trello is made by a diverse group of people. There's developers, designers, product managers, people managers, and we are literally dispersed around the globe. Half the company works remote, so that means that our company culture is often a very virtual experience. So we try to take those elements and try to incorporate it into the product so that our users can get to know us. For example, in our explanation of how to use Markdown on the back of a card, we also teach users how to make scrambled eggs. Just a fun little anecdote. Instead of using generic text for our logins, we display examples of what the character emails might be from Game of Thrones or X-Files. On iOS, we write very long, serious notes about what was updated in a very dramatic way. And this is sort of turned into a social sharing thing, but they ultimately do tell you what has been updated in the application, but it might take you a while. And some users love this. Some people love it so much, there was one user who actually started recording them in a very dramatic voice as a voiceover. So take a note the next time you look at it on an iOS application. Also, our mascot. You've seen him throughout our entire presentation here today. He's a Siberian husky named Taco. He makes an appearance from time to time in Trello, also in email marketing, to update users about new things that are happening. Taco is a representation of an actual dog. He is the dog of our co-founder, Joel Spolsky. You'll notice in the application that he only says "roo," R-O-O, and that's sort of because he doesn't bark. So we tried to make him as fun and as whimsical as possible, but still relatable because he's an actual dog. Along with sharing the personality of our company, we actively try to build a rapport with our users. Acknowledging where a user is from is a powerful way to improve their experience. We're aware of a user's language settings and their geographical location, which allows us to reach out to users with references to culture and their native language. When we translate Trello into another language, we just did that with Portuguese. This is an example from there. We want our Portuguese users to know that this is more than just a translation. It's an opportunity for us to show that we can relate to you. We often change our colors. We often change our marketing pages. Anything that we can do to sort of nod or wink to them and say, this is custom to you. We also spend a lot of time making sure that the language we use when we translate really reflects the culture of the company. Language and culture references aren't the only way to make ourselves more accessible to our users. We also take measures to relate to users by showing them that we care about accessibility. Trello enables colorblind-friendly mode on labels. It seems small, but we receive kind words all the time for people thanking us that we've made this consideration that on colorblind mode, labels show a pattern when the colors fail. Accessibility is an important consideration that cannot be dismissed, especially if the product you make is very visual in nature. Speaking of visual, we found that it's delightful to make it personal. Early iterations of Trello had clear metaphors of the board with lists and cards, but they all sort of looked the same. It had the blue background with a gray list and the white cards, and cards all had the similar format. Power users had a really hard time seeing the visual difference from one board to another. Because of this, we started experimenting with integrating controlled customizations, which allow users to add their personality to each project. This increases visual distinction between boards, but it doesn't remove the core visuals of what makes Trello unique. One example of this is the board backgrounds. We offer a selection of colors, photographs, and users are able to upload their own. Not only does this offer a distinction when skimming through a list of boards, it gives a user a sense of ownership. They're not just using a tool to manage a project. By spending time making customizations, they're making a bit of an emotional commitment in something that will help them get their project done. Imagine you're planning a trip to Hawaii. You upload a background of a beautiful beach. That simple customization makes the trip a bit more tangible, and it makes the stress of planning an overseas trip a little less painful. This also extends on the web. When you have a custom background, the favicon actually updates as well to represent that customization. So when you have 30 tabs open, it's super easy to just jump to the board because you can recognize it by its identity. Card covers act in a similar way. We added the ability that when you attach an image to a card, it becomes the header of that card. It acts as a visual context of the card's content on a board that might have an overwhelming amount of information already. We also allow you to customize cards by adding stickers, your own stickers. We have a collection of our own as well that we provide. This just adds a little something to the card to help signify that there's something different about it, and it also just adds a little bit of fun to a project when needed. Yes, and all of the items that you can upload can be in GIFs, so you can have animated cats, you can have anything you want. We don't recommend this. It's abuse of power, but you're welcome to try it. There's also an aha moment, and this is really important to Trello, and it's hard to define it and it's hard to explain it, but I think it's worth putting effort and attention into it. It's not always the most obvious things that delight users the first time, but rather when they get the whole picture of something coming together. One of these big picture ideas is that everything in Trello happens asynchronously. I move a card, it shows that it's moved immediately on your computer or your phone. You add a checklist item, it shows immediately on mine. Everything happens in real time, and this makes Trello a very delightful collaboration tool. It doesn't matter if you're in the same room, collaborating in Trello, adding meeting notes, planning, or if you're dispersed across the globe. The experience is the same. It's immediate, it's real time. Lastly, I want to stress that the importance of making it fun. If the process of creating your product is fun and delightful, the results will inherently delight. We have a lot of fun as a company. We hold internal contests. Even folks that are remote participate. Right now, there's a contest for who can do the best lip sync. We also have talent shows, and best of all, something that we call Mr. Rogers. Every week, two people in the company are paired up, well, not just two people, but everybody is paired up with somebody else in the company. And we meet with them for 15 minutes to a half hour, and we just have fun. There's no structure, there's no work-related items that need to be discussed. We just hang out. People make music together, people come up with poetry, people lip sync, they do all kinds of crazy things. This is super important because more than half of us don't work in the same office. It builds a sense of camaraderie. It builds bonds that help us learn how to work with one another, and it leads to creating a great product as a team. Also, sometimes we step outside of the product to have fun, spread some love, and interact with our users in unique ways. One of our developers came out with this crazy Pong rendition of Trello. It's an actual game where users can play. Our users try to beat it. They brag about their scores. It's just a fun way to step out and say, remember to have fun. We also do other things like reward users with Trello Gold, create example boards for Hodor or Aya from Game of Thrones, hold Trello chats. We just have fun with it. The list goes on. Creating software that delights users is a wonderful and enriching experience that motivates us to keep pushing forward. I encourage you to build your applications with delight in mind. And I hope that you leave this presentation with some insight on how you can maintain a delightful experience. And I just want to leave by reminding you with these 4 things. Stay true to your product vision. Be a user of your own product. Break patterns and make it fun. That's it. Thank you very much.
Some questions with
Okay.
the public, okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes. If you have any questions, please feel free. It's hard for me to see you, but I'd love to have your feedback, thoughts, ideas.
J'ai un micro derrière.
Thanks. Hi. So, congrats for the talk. It was really, really nice.
Thank you.
I'm here if you want.
Okay, I see you now.
Yesterday we had a presentation about a French startup, and their vision was their users. They wanted to that the users spend less time on the application because it forced them to make the application simple and fast and easy to understand and everything. So what's your strategy about that? Do you want to keep the user on your application, or more make it fast and simple and make it coming back again?
I think, obviously we want to make specific interactions very fast, like adding cards, creating boards, collecting ideas. But there's different phases in which you use Trello. So it's sort of like that background application that it's always accessible and you can spend time with it when you need it. So I don't think that there's one solution in that context, because sometimes you want to collect the card, you open up your phone, you write your note, and you're done. And then there's other times that you're sitting down with an iPad or you're at your desktop computer and you're really thinking about, okay, what am I planning here? And that's going to take a lot more time. It's not necessarily that it takes time in the user interactions, but it takes more time in a planning context.
Thanks.
Don't be shy. Feature ideas, anything, what you love, what you hate about Trello. Hopefully you don't hate anything, but. I think there's someone here in the front.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry, perhaps I didn't get you, but I just wanted to know, why did you choose a dog for representing
So
Trello?
I had it in the presentation, but I'll go more in depth so that it's easier to relate to. We wanted to create a mascot so that people could find something cute to relate to the product. So the owner or the co-founder of Trello actually has a Siberian Husky. So he's a representation of that dog. And we use him specifically in different contexts to say, hey, there's something new. There's something interesting that you should check out about Trello. And it also allows us to relate to different cultures easily. He's a universal identifier. Does that help a little?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. I love Trello for the simplicity of the use. But in my agency, we use the Atlassian's applications because every app is connected and the workflow is just amazing. More hard to get in here, but everything is fluid after. What is the strategy about Trello?
Sure. That's something that we're spending a lot of time thinking about and working on, is how to build better integrations. And we think that the more integrations that we have, it'll be easier to adapt within organizations. That's just the main thing. Like, we don't have any specific timeline. It's that we're thinking about it and we want that to happen. The thing that we've noticed is that if you can manage to get Trello into an organization with just one project, a small team, it starts to grow exponentially, because that small team is working on something, they're aware that they're going to use Trello for that context. And then when other people start getting involved, they start getting invited to the board. So it naturally starts to grow within an organization.
Hi.
Last question.
Thanks for the talk. Sorry. It seems to me that Trello was first work-oriented, and now it's getting into the personal life of the users. And so I was wondering, like, how your audience is evolving. Like, what part now is using it at work, and what part at home? And how do you see things in the future?
Sure.
Where will you focus, actually?
I think inherently, because Trello is used to make Trello, it will be a work-related product. It will always have those qualities. But it's so adaptable that people are using it in so many different ways that we're just starting to explore from a marketing context. How can we adapt Trello to work in even more solutions? So I think that in time, you'll just see that there's nothing that you can't plan Trello with. That there's going to be a way that you can structure a board in a familiar way that will allow you to plan anything. So yeah, just to sum up, I think like it'll always be a work-related, and it might be catered to that, but we're starting to explore to go beyond that. Cool. Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Alan.